say you'll never forget where you were when you heard the news on September 11th, 2001. Neither will I. I was on the 110th floor in a smoke-filled room with a man who called his wife to say goodbye. I held his fingers steady as he dialed. I gave him the piece to say, "Honey, I'm not going to make it. But it's okay, I'm ready to go." I was with his wife when he called as she fed breakfast to their children. I held her up as she tried to understand his words. And as she realized he wasn't coming home that night. I was in the stairwell of the 23rd floor when a woman cried out to me for help. "I've been knocking on the door of your heart for 50 years. I said, "Of course, I'll show you the way home. Only believe in me now." I was at the base of the building when the priest ministered to the injured and devastated souls. I took him home to tend his flock in heaven. He heard my voice and answered. I was on all 4 of those planes, in every seat, with every prayer. I was with the crew as they were overtaken. I was in the very hearts of the believers there, comforting and assuring them that their faith has saved them. I was in Texas, Kansas, London. I was standing next to you when you heard the terrible news. Did you sense me? I want you to know that I saw every face. I knew every name, though not all know me. Some met me for the first time on the 86th floor. Some sought me with their last breath. Some couldn't hear me calling to them through the smoke and flames. "Come to me, this way, take my hand." Some chose, for the final time, to ignore me. But I was there. I did not place you in the tower that day. You may not know why, but I do. However, if you were there in that explosive moment in time, would you have reached for me? September 11th, 2001 was not the end of the journey for you. But someday your journey will end, and I'll be there for you as well. Seek me now while I may be found. Then, at any moment, you know you're ready to go. I will be in the stairwell of your final moments. Remember, I love you.
In 3 days, we celebrate the 12th anniversary of the attacks on 9/11/2001. As you all know, I'm a firefighter. This is a special day for us. It's sort of becoming Memorial Day. And as I talked to you this morning, hopefully I concentrate a lot on the firefighter's viewpoint. I apologize for that. I'm not trying to slight anybody. I'm trying to pay homage to all that was lost that day. And one questions that you always hear from non-believers and skeptics whenever something like 9/11 happens or any other tragedy. Where was God? Why did God allow this to happen? Well, he was there, but same reason everything else. Man has free will. And the 19 individuals that perpetrated these attacks had free will. But I'm here to tell you, that even though despite the magnitude of this tragedy, God was there. I also wanted to concentrate on some of the miracles that happened that are often overshadowed in the enormity of the tragedy that happened that day. That a lot of people don't recognize. And God's hand, there's like, if you look at the full story, there's a lot of God's hand seen in the events that happened that day. Even though the attack occurred, God was there with those, as you heard in the song. We'll start out with the day itself. Can anybody remember? They always say, "Where were you at? You remember what you were doing?" Can anybody remember what the day was like on September 11th of that year? Anybody else?
Sunny.
Sunny.
Yeah, sunny, beautiful.
Not a cloud in the sky.
No.
It was like that up the entire East Coast. Cool, cloud-free, and sunny. Now there's lots that said, well, that's why the attackers chose that day, because they were amateur pilots and they needed a clear, sunny day to be able to pilot the aircraft. Well, they bought their tickets in August. They couldn't know what the day was going to be like that day. They bought them in the middle of August and all. So where was God's hand in that? Well, the week before, and the days leading up to 9/11 had been unusually hot, hazy, humid, and just plain miserable. September 11th dawned clear, crisp, cool, absolutely beautiful day. Now what happens to people at work when you've had a bunch of lousy days and then a nice day comes along?
Nobody wants to go to work.
Some people develop eye problems. They can't see going to work. They'd rather be out somewhere enjoying themselves. So, because of this day being so beautiful, although it helped the terrorists to carry out their attack by giving them a clear sky to fly in, it also spared some people because they took the day off from work rather than go in. So God's grace and mercy, and I dare say a miracle happened with that, because there could have been a lot more people in those towers and at the Pentagon that day if it had been an ordinary day or a bad, a day that wasn't as pleasant outside. The attacks occurred at roughly 8:30 in the morning. 8:30 in the morning. The New York City Fire Department changes tours at 9 o'clock. Which means, what I mean by change tours, one shift comes on, no shift goes off. Well, firemen, being firemen, they like to sit around and drink coffee and tell what went on, tell stories about what went on the night before, and tell rumors about what's going on and everything else, and plan fishing trips and things like that. They come in early, they stay late. So at the time of the attacks, you had double the number of firefighters in the firehouses when the attack occurred. And what does that mean? Well, that means that when that alarm came in, firemen being firemen, every single one of them jumped on that truck and went out that door. Because that's what firemen do. They wouldn't miss that for the world. And what does having twice the number of firefighters on a fire truck mean? That means you have twice people to help evacuate those towers. Those guys rolled through lower Manhattan, and they saw that smoke coming out of those towers. And I've been in the right seat of that fire truck, and I know what it's like to roll up, see smoke boiling at a building, and know that you're going to have to go inside. You can't call 911. You are 911. Their hearts were pounding in their chest. I'm sure some of them pulled out their cell phones and called their loved ones because they knew this was going to be a call like none other. The biggest, most professional fire department in the United States, and they were going to work on the job of their lives. There were 40-year veterans that responded to this, and there were guys that it was their first day on the job. Can you imagine this being going in this call, that being your first day of work? There were fathers and sons that responded, cousins, uncles, nephews, brothers. The first chief on the scene, Battalion Chief Joe Pfeiffer, arrived on scene and established the incident command while his brother Kevin raced to the scene in an engine company as a lieutenant in charge. They met in the lobby of the North Tower, conferred. Kevin went up the stairs. He never came back down again. Joseph Angelini Sr., 40 years on the job, in his mid-60s. He was a member of the elite Rescue 1 in Upper Manhattan. He could have retired 20 years before, but he did not. He stayed on the job. He raced from Upper Manhattan to the scene of the towers, while his son, Joseph Angelini Jr., raced there in his engine company. Both of them would meet at the gates of heaven later that morning. I know what it's like. I'm not, like I say, I'm not trying to slight the police officers and all, because their contribution is just as important too. I know the firefighter's viewpoint. These men arrived at these towers. The person was smoking, fire, people were hanging out the windows, and they witnessed the plane hit the second tower. I know what it's like to climb those stairs. The highest I've ever climbed is 14 stories. I can't imagine what it's like having to climb to the 80th, 85th, 86th floor. You're wearing, your heart is already trying to beat out of your chest. It feels like a train, runaway train, trying to jump off the tracks. And on top of it, you're wearing this helmet, this coat, these pants, and these boots to protect you from the flames. Well, in protecting you from the flames, it also holds in your body. If you're on an engine company, you have to carry loops of hose with you. If you're on a ladder company, you have to carry heavy tools to force doors to rescue people. And up the stairs you go, not knowing what's on the other end. And I'm sure, I don't know too many firefighters that are not believers, because when you get a glimpse of hell, when you get the glimpse what hell might be like on a regular basis, it tends to make a believer out of you. And I'm sure that there were many Hail Marys said in the Lord's Prayer. I'm sure a lot of them had Psalm 20, the 23rd Psalm on their mind. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And they were literally rolling into the valley of the shadow of death, in the valley made by those buildings. But it was not just the firefighters who stepped up that day. We had Rick Briscola, excuse me. Rick was the director of security for Morgan Stanley. He also co-authored a book called We Were Soldiers. Rick had been a member of the British Army before immigrating to the United States and joining the United States Army. He fought alongside Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore in the Idrang Valley of Vietnam. Matter of fact, if you've ever seen the cover of the book version, because as you know, this was made into a movie with Mel Gibson in it. If you ever look at the cover of the book, We Were Soldiers, that is a picture of Rick on the cover of it. So he said he survived battlefields of Vietnam to find himself at the Trade Center on that day. Morgan Stanley had 2,687 employees there because of Rick. Got God leading him on, he got all but 60 of them out. And when he got all that 2,000 something employees down, someone told him, Rick, you gotta get out of here, the building's gonna fall. He turned around and said, as soon as I make sure everyone else is out, and up the stairs he went. He called his wife, told her to stop crying, that he had to get everybody out, and she had made his life complete. He was last seen on the 10th floor of the South Tower. And then people like Rick, who really, I mean, he had a duty, but not like the firefighters and police officers. Rick was a civilian. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And Rick laid down his life for his friends in that tower that day. Because those employees were his friends as well. Another miracle that happened too was just how events unfolded. The planes were nowhere near with their capacity. American Airlines Flight 77 that flew into the Pentagon had 289 people aboard, or could have had 289 people aboard had it been full. There were only 64 aboard. American Airlines Flight 11 that crashed into the World Trade Center could have had 351. At the time, there was only 92. United Airlines Flight 175, the other plane that flew into the towers, could have had 351 aboard also. There were only 65. And then there was United Airlines Flight 93. Could have had 289 people aboard, but there were only 45. But the plane with the least amount of people aboard. They were delayed in leaving the airport in Boston, and they got word of what was going on in New York City. So the men aboard that flight developed a plan to overtake the hijackers. They said a prayer, and with Tom Beaver's words, let's roll, they attempted to take the aircraft back. Unfortunately, crashed into a farm field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and all aboard were lost. But these men, the action they took, and again, no greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. They still don't know what the destination of that aircraft was. But instead of 45 people perishing, there could have been thousands, depending on what the target was. Also, the trajectory of the aircraft, Flight 77 hit the Pentagon right at the base of the building.